Oh, hello, and welcome to the Daily Quest. It's been a while. The Daily Quest is not so daily anymore, just because chaos, life, and I'm bad at scheduling things. But alas, we are here with number 19 of the Daily Quest, and today we are going to be discussing Kael'Thas. He's been out for a few days, a little over a week at this point in time. And we have a pretty decent idea of how he feels, how he fits, what his role is as a hero. Now, his role, that's pretty straightforward. He's an assassin, he does a lot of damage, but we were pretty unsure as to how strong he would be. We have now actually seen him played in competitive for a few games, and he's a very big priority hero. He's either first picked or first banned, generally from what we've seen so far. So he's a pretty good guy. But you might be saying, Kael'Thas, oh, I don't know a lot about him. Why don't you tell me more about Kael'Thas? Well, I'm gonna do just that, and we'll just hop right in to talk about this beautiful hero that is Kael'Thas. Now, KT Rolster, I like to call him, also known as Kael'Thas. He's a ranged assassin. He is the Sun King. Like all Blood Elves, Prince Kael'Thas was transformed by the fall of Kael'Thas. Desperate to save his people from being consumed by their magical addiction, he joined the forces of the Burning Legion and are now lords over Tempest Keep. And of course, if you played World of Warcraft, the Burning Crusade, you fought Kael'Thas and you're well familiar with his beautiful self and his Phoenix friend. But let's talk about his kit here in Heroes of the Storm. He's got Q, that's Flame Strike. You've played Hearthstone, you know how annoying that 7 mana card is. Very strong, very powerful. It's just the same in this game. It doesn't wipe the board. It's not like linear like in Hearthstone, because the way the board is laid out, it's actually a circle in this game. But it's quite powerful. After a short delay, it does 74 damage in an area. And if you use Verdant Spheres, we should actually talk about that first, actually. Verdant Spheres is his trait, and that's what makes this hero so very interesting. You activate to make your next basic ability more powerful. So that means that you can activate this every 6 seconds, but it will not ever affect your heroic abilities. It will affect your Q, your W, and your E, also known as your basic abilities. So when you use Verdant Spheres with Flame Strike, that will increase the radius by 50% and give about a 50% boost on the damage. It goes from 74 damage to 111 damage starting at level 1. Looking at his W, you have Living Bomb. Now, Living Bomb, that does 60 damage over 3 seconds to an enemy, so that's damage over time, but they will then explode, dealing 30 damage to all nearby enemies. Casting a Living Bomb on an enemy causes the previous Living Bomb to explode immediately. So, if you use Verdant Spheres, it makes it so that your Living Bomb has no cooldown, costs no mana. You cast it once, you cast it again, you can force the explosion instantly to do area of effect damage. If you pair that with Flame Strike, there's a lot of burst damage you can get in there at that moment. And if you want to lock that target down to make sure that they can't get away from all of this beautiful damage you want to throw at them, well, that's when you use Gravity Lapse. Gravity Lapse is, of course, it's a stun. It lifts them in the air for 1.5 seconds. That's a rather long stun. I mean, a lot of stuns do not last anywhere near that long. So having a 1.5 second stun is pretty big, but it's got a bit of a longer travel time than a lot of the other stuns. It's slower than something like Stormbolt, so actually hitting it can be a little bit more difficult, but if you use Verdant Spheres, you can stun 3 enemies at once. So the first 3 enemies it hits, it will lift them in the air. That could be 3 heroes, it could be minions, it could be whatever the heck it decides to hit first, but it is up to you to, angle that and shoot it at your targets that you prioritize. So looking at his heroics, he has Phoenix and Pyroblast, but Phoenix is pretty much a massive turret. It's not really an AoE ability in the sense of Starfall, although it might look like it. So it has a very large radius. You shoot it down a path, it will then travel down that path, it will deal damage to everything within the travel path, and it will then summon, sit there, and attack one target, dealing damage, but it also has splash damage for 50% of the damage dealt. It adds up quite a bit, and it's very powerful, but the big thing is it's only a 40-second cooldown, so this is something you can use if you're going for the bruisers, and you decide, hey, we want to take this bruiser camp. It's really not that big of a commitment to throw your 40-second ability down. If you know there's not going to be a team fight in the next 30-40 seconds, you can be like, alright, well, I'm going to throw my Phoenix down. I mean, it's only 80 mana, I can spend that. Totally worth it, very good heroic, and it's great for zoning in the team fights when it comes down to it. Looking at these heroics, we have Pyroblast as the second one, and that is a 2-second cast time. very long cast time, has a pretty large range, but if they step out of your cast range, the heroic will not go off. It does a massive amount of damage. It's pretty much the strongest single target ability in the game. It's kind of like an ancestral healing that's aggressive from, that's what Rhaegar has, his big heal. And it does splash damage to everyone around it. So it's very powerful ability. If they're clumped, it's absolutely devastating on the receiving end. But it travels so slow. It's like Indiana Jones, where it's just this boulder that you're running away from, and it just doesn't stop coming no matter what you do. And that's true. Now, there are a few ways to handle it. If you're on the receiving end, you can use Ice Block. This will nullify it. You can actually use Void Prison on your ally or yourself. That will actually stop the Pyroblast. The Pyroblast will just stop existing during its travel path. Tassadar can just go into Dimensional Shift. Heroes that have transformations, like Panda Pals, where he gets a second health bar, or the Vikings boat, or I think Metamorphosis as well. They will. I'm not actually sure about Metamorphosis. That one might not be true, but that will actually cancel the Pyroblast. So really, really strong ability, but it has a ton of counterplay, and that's why generally, especially if you're just learning the character, Phoenix is going to get more use, and you're going to feel a little bit more impactful with your heroic, because the number of times I pick up Pyroblast and I just do nothing with it. It's like, oh, I'm going to shoot it, and then I shoot it, and the target's already dead before it gets there, or I die while I'm casting it, or whatever it is. It seems really difficult to use effectively. And just that 40-second cooldown is so appealing. So just to give you guys a quick hands-on, we'll hop into the game very quickly, and then after that we will go over the talents. We'll talk about every single talent option that Kael'Thas has, what is good, why, and when you will take them. So just giving you the brief rundown very quickly. We're going to toggle those minions on, and we're just going to pick this up. Now, Verdant Spheres, that's his D. This is 6-second trait that we talked about. This allows you to use all of these abilities. You can look at this. We talked about Living Bomb. You can cast it twice with Verdant Spheres. 1, 2, and you get the burst damage. Let's turn those sound effects on. So nice. Oh, boom, boom. Now, we also have Gravity Lapse. Throw that here. It lifts Arthas up. He's good and happy going in the air. You use the E, and we gotta clear those cooldowns. He's gonna die before I get there. You can lift 3 targets at once. Very, very cool. Quite powerful. Now, Flame Strike. Pretty small radius. Verdant Spheres. Much larger radius. So that's kind of how Verdant Spheres works. But let's level up. Let's get those heroic abilities and look at those. Alright, that'll do. 10. Boom, boom, boom. Just grab 3 random heroics. And the Phoenix. Now this is that 40-second cooldown. You can see that yellow arrow. You see the big radius circle, but there's also the arrow. The arrow is the travel path of the Phoenix. So when the Phoenix travels, it will do damage to everything within that path. But at the end, it's going to summon a Phoenix, which does area of effect damage. So I want the arrow to hit. It's going to connect, and then he summons. It's prioritizing Arthas, and it's also doing splash damage around. Once he leaves the radius, it will then pick a target and then splash around it. Doesn't last all that long, but it is great for zoning and just being on the battlefield. And again, that 40-second cooldown is really rather short, and you can just use that on mercenary camps, and if you're just trying to pick up that Plant Terra on Garden of Terra to get those seeds for your team. Also very useful for those situations. Alright, let's reset level and go back, level up to 10, and get the other heroic Pyroblast. Alright, there we go. And Pyroblast. Now, Pyroblast, his other heroic, again, I mentioned, his trait Verdant Spheres will not work on heroics. No matter what you do, you can't use it. But you'll see how, like, the cast range is pretty big, but if he steps at all out of it, which he probably won't because he's out of the spot, the range does increase. You'll notice that if I just clear the cooldown again, a lot of damage. So cast range is here. Oh, I canceled it. Cast range is pretty far, but then it increases the radius even more once it actually starts to cast. So it does give you a bit of a buffer to make it easier to use, but watch, he steps out. Oh, no, he doesn't. He wants to get hit by the Pyroblast. I was so excited. It's like, oh, Arthasbot did what I wanted. And no, he turned around. So that's pretty much the kit that Kael'Thas has. And now we're going to talk about how you can actually maximize that kit in different situations with different builds. Just looking over at the builds. Now this is heroesnexus.com. I use Heroes Nexus. I use Heroes Fire. They both have great tools for building all of these builds that you want to like experiment with and try different things. So we're just going to be using Nexus today, and we're just going to start off by looking at level 1. Now level 1, he's got 4 options. He's got Mana Addict, which increases your maximum mana capacity. every time you pick up a regenerative globe. So this just gives you a larger mana pool, which is, well, quite useful to have more mana, especially because you're a mage. You want to cast as many spells as you can. So it's a pretty solid option. The next option is Convection. Convection increases the damage done by Flame Strike by 20% when they're up in the Gravity Lapse. Now, this is the one talent that I will advise that you probably don't go for. It sounds really good. When I first saw it and I first picked it up, I'm like, yeah, that's going to be the talent to grab. But it's actually not all that common that you're in this perfect world 1v1 situation where you're going to be able to do that frequently. And at the end of the day, you're not going to make use of this as often as you would like, because Kael'Thas is very squishy. He has very little mobility. And more often than less, you're just going to be going in and throwing down your bombs, the living bomb on targets as often as possible, throwing out a flame strike. You're not going to be trying to set up these big combos as much. He's more of like a poke and prod, and later in the game, that poke and prod becomes devastating to the enemy team. Looking at the next option, it's Energy Roll. This just reduces the cooldown on Gravity Lapse when you hit a target. So if you talent it with Verdant Spheres, you happen to hit 3 targets, that's 9 seconds removed from this cooldown, which is already, I believe, a 12-second cooldown. I will confirm that in just a moment. And the final option is Fel Infusion. If you are playing solo queue, Kael'Thas, you need to be quiet. If you're playing solo queue and you have no healer on your team, do yourself a favor, get Fel Infusion. It's actually rather impactful. It's a pretty strong talent that does a fair amount of healing throughout the game when you consider it's only a 6-second cooldown. I mean, you get a lot of healing from it. And I'm just going to give someone in chat permissions to post a link, because they are asking to do that. Oh, that is not actually... Oops. All right. There we go. Alright, so moving on, yes, I just want to confirm the cooldown. So it's Flame Strike is 7 seconds, we have the 10 seconds on Living Bomb, and it is 13 seconds for Gravity Lapse. So in theory, if you do grab this talent at level 1 Energy Roll, and you spend Verdant Spheres on your E, you can reduce that cooldown down to 4 seconds for the lift. It's 1.5 seconds on 3 targets that you can reduce the cooldown to 4 seconds. That's actually insane. Really, really quite good. So it's a pretty good option, especially if you're worried about control on the fight. Definitely go with that. If you don't have a healer, you want to grab a Fel Infusion. But if you're just straight up playing, you feel safe, you feel good about your team, you just want to get the maximum damage output, go with Mana Addict. It's going to give you the additional mana pool. It's going to give you just more juice in the tank to continue laying out damage, and you're not going to regret it. Alright, so we're just going to put that as our talent here. Mana Tap is an option at level 4. Now this is kind of like what Jaina has. Jaina has the mana restored to all of the targets that are currently affected by the chill, but it's not quite as good. Jaina's is applied to everything when it comes to auto attacks, her spells. She has massive AoEs, and she can pretty much have unlimited mana if you play with it correctly. But with Mana Tap, you have to get the kills with Flame Strike, and this is easier to do later in the game, but you end up giving up quite a bit of power to do so. And if you just grab Mana Addict at level 1, it's generally going to be enough. So looking at level 4, I would probably say don't go for Mana Tap, look at the other options. Nether Wind increases Gravity Lapse range and speed by 30%, makes it easier to hit. If you're going for a Hyper Control Kael'Thas, yes, you do want to pair these two together. It's definitely viable, especially if you're using your Verdant Spheres to spec into that frequently, and just control the battlefield. Different style KT, can be very cool with a hero like Kerrigan. You have to think about synergies if you're going for that kind of composition. If you're running with Kerrigan, Kael'Thas becomes a great ganking partner for her, and definitely something very cool. But Gathering Power is just so very appealing. Getting that increased spell power on all of your abilities, that ability power just adds up so much. Get those 5 stacks, suddenly he hits like a truck. Every Flame Strike you use will just pretty much instantly melt a wave if you spec it with Verdant Spheres on those 5 stacks. It's really good, and I would steer away from Envenom just because of how good Gathering Power is. Gathering Power at the end of the day makes his kit better. This is an additional spell, but with a stronger kit, it's just going to have more effectiveness throughout the game. Looking at level 7, Fission Bomb is actually the only talent I have ever picked up except for one game, so I guess that statement is incorrect, but it's fine. Fission Bomb is just 75% more damage on Living Bomb, his W. And you can already use Verdant Spheres to make it so you cast the W twice, and later in this build we're going to show you some of the other big talents that you can pick up to pair with this. So Fission Bomb, that's what we're going to go with, but the other options, we have the Surface Enhancement. This activating Verdant Spheres makes your next basic attack... wait, I read this wrong. Yeah, it makes it a spell, basically, which is, like, cool. It's kind of like follow through for a mage. It's cool, but this is better when it comes to damage. Try Optimal reduces the Verdant Sphere's cooldown by 2 seconds per target hit with the Gravity Lap. So if you're already spamming Verdant Spheres to use your Wind, this will then reduce the cooldown on Verdant Spheres, and it has a ton of synergy for this crazy control. I'm going to constantly throw these winds at you, and if you're very successful with your skill shots, it's actually disgusting. So that is a build if you're going for crazy control. And it's actually very interesting to see that he has Clairvoyance. Now, Clairvoyance, if you're afraid of ganks and you're trying to play like a push Kael'Thas, maybe you want to consider this, but giving up Fission Bombs is just so hard to do. At level 10, we talked about his heroics. We showed them just a moment ago. I mentioned how difficult it is to land those clutch Pyroblasts, and it's as strong as it is. There's probably some amazing synergies with Murky and Octograb and things of the like, maybe Judgment on Tyrael. A lot of cool pairings you can do with this heroic, but at the end of the day, a 40-second cooldown with AoE, zoning, and a pretty strong amount of damage output is hard to pass up. The Phoenix will be the heroic we choose for this build. And last but not least, we can look at 13. I guess it's not last at all, but we have Flamethrower as a pretty good option. Now, this is something I like quite a bit when I'm doing solo queue as Kael'Thas. This gives you that additional range on the Flame Strike. You can hit people from oh so very far away, especially when you throw Verdant Spheres on it to increase the radius and damage. Very powerful talent, but Chain Bomb is the name of the game. The Living Bomb explosion applies Living Bomb again. This makes it so that when you cast Living Bomb, it'll explode and spread to everything. She becomes like an explosive version of Sylvanas with fire and just destruction, where suddenly his just bombs are on everything, blowing up and doing ridiculous amounts of damage. If the enemy team has lost Vikings and they have like a lot of heroes clumped up, this benefits Kael'Thas so much. Not only are they exploding on targets and exploding again and just kind of reapplying constantly, it seems, but he will get gathering power stacks every time he kills someone like Murky, or every time he kills someone like Lost Vikings. And this kind of talent alone, I mean, he doesn't even need it against Vikings, but it helps benefit in those kind of situations, and especially in like close maps where there's any kind of clumping. Very, very powerful talent. Pyromaniac, not as strong. Now, every tick of the Living Bomb reduces their basic abilities cooldown by 1 second. It's cool. Let's use more spells, but it's not as impactful. But Spell Shield is actually quite interesting. Now, the situation in which you would consider picking up Spell Shield in place of something like Chain Bomb or maybe Flamethrower is if the enemy team has really built a composition that is horrible for you. It's just they're trying to snipe you. They want to stop your damage, because that's going to be a pretty common theme with considering how strong Kael'Thas is. So if you see a Nova, like this, you know, stealthy sniper spellcaster that's going for you and hunting for you, Spell Shield is actually a really good option. It will help mitigate a lot of the aggression that she can present on the battlefield. So definitely worth considering there, but in this build, Chain Bomb will be the talent we scoop up. At level 16, we can see Ignite. That actually makes it so your Flame Strike also applies to Living Bomb. You guys see the theme yet? Do you guys see the theme yet? We already talked about Fission Bomb that increases the damage by 75%. At level 13, we pick up Chain Bomb that makes it so that every time your bomb explodes, hits more targets. Can we get more Living Bombs? Yes, we can. Every time we cast our Q, now we get more Living Bombs. Absolutely disgusting. That will be what we go for. But the other options there is Backdraft. This means the explosion slows enemies and movement speed by 40%. That's a lot. 2.5 seconds, 40% reduction. Very good. If you're playing a more aggressive style, might be worth considering, but you do lose out on a bit of damage. Gravity Throw, this increases the duration of the stun by 33%, and it causes it to instantly destroy enemy minions. So in theory, if you did go RE talent, RE build, and you spec in a Gravity Throw, you can melt waves very quickly. It's interesting, it's cool, it's fun, but it doesn't have that same kind of presence of damage as the build that we're specking right here. And Arcane Barrier, that is, last but not least, a massive shield, which is stronger depending on your mana pool. So this actually has a lot of synergy with the level 1 talent Mana Addict. If you get all this additional mana from picking up those globes throughout the game, at level 16, if you're struggling to stay alive and you opted to not go for Spell Shield, this is the other option. You go for Arcane Barrier. The amount of shielding it can provide is quite massive, and it can put you into situations where you can get really, really unnecessarily aggressive and have this massive shield for 3 seconds. And it's a pretty high skill ability to use it to its maximum effectiveness. So definitely consider that, because it's quite interesting, but it's not as straightforward as getting something like Ignite that just flat out gives Living Bomb to your Q. And last but not least, we have 20. Rebirth, that makes it so your Phoenix duration is increased, and you can relocate the Phoenix, kind of like the new Mosh Pit, where you can actually dash forward with the Mosh Pit. You can get the Presence of Mind, increase the Pyroblast explosion radius, and it reduces the cooldown for every hero you hit. You can pretty much get a free return on the cooldown if you hit everything. But Bolt of the Storm, that's probably what you're going to go for. We talked about Kael'Thas not having any mobility at all. He has no sprint, he has no dash, no dive, no nothing at all. And he's very, very fragile. So Bolt is definitely what you're going to want to go for. But if you're super confident and you want to make those super sick explosive plays, literally, you will pick up Arcane Power, because this is 15% spell power and 400 mana returned for the next 5 seconds. 5 seconds of just, that's your entire kit cast once. You can throw out 2 Living Bombs, you throw out your Q and your Gravity Lift with Arcane Power. It's going to do a lot of damage, but you're also going to be putting yourself into a pretty scary spot to do that a lot of the time. So it might be worth considering picking up Bolt instead and just getting the safe damage and staying alive to cast your kit once more. Overall, though, that is pretty much Kael'Thas, and he's a pretty fun guy. He's a pretty cool hero, and we're actually going to look at a replay. We're just going to kind of analyze. Now, I actually haven't pre-analyzed this. We cast the game just last night. We had some games played between Cloud9 and I believe it was 2 Arc. And it was some rather convincing play on the side. No, excuse me, it was Complexity. But I'm going to load up that replay. I'm just finding it very quickly. I'm a bad person who did not mark it. So, esports. We'll change the scene here. And if you guys have been playing Kael'Thas, let me know what kind of builds you're running, because I'm actually rather curious to see the different styles. But yes, we will watch this game on Tomb of the Spider Queen. It was played just last night. Biceps was playing. Wait, no, this is a horrible example game. We are not going to watch this game, because this is the ETC bot game. ETC bot actually came through. We're not watching the ETC bot game, Liam. No, can't happen. That was actually hilarious. If you missed it, you can watch the VOD at twitch.tv/ESLHeroes. But ETC bot, a player disconnected, and we had a bot playing in the game. And, well, he made plays. He made big plays, but we cannot use that as a reference. It was very funny. Okay. We found a replay. ETC bot game or Riot. I could make a whole episode on ETC bot, because he is so gosu at this video game. Alright, we have a replay, and everything's loaded up, ready to roll. Everyone is spawning, summoning, oh so happily. And we can see the 2 teams in this game. Now, on the left, that's Cloud9 Vortex. We're going to be watching Mr. Kael'Thas in this game, so that's Bobby Hankill. Look at this beautiful skin, the synergy with that... What is it called again? Steampunk? Steampunk Kael'Thas with his tiger mount. I don't know if they have tigers in Steampunk. If they do, that's new to me. That's definitely new to me. But Bobby Hankill is going to be playing Kael'Thas, and we're going to keep a close eye on to his heroics. Level 1, or his talents. Level 1, he does pick up Mana Addict. and that's just going to give him the extra retention. But the start of the game is going to be rather slow, so we'll just fast forward. Just take note of the positioning on the map. He's dancing, he's doing his little spin around, and we can see that just the red team is looking for these ganks. Well aware that Kael'Thas doesn't really have a lot of mobility, and Bobby knows they're going to be hunting him down, so that's kind of why he's just bee-walking, we like to call it, spamming that Hearthstone key, just saying, hey, I know you're trying to gank me, but I'm not going to step too far out. Ziggs is just in range to make sure he soaks up this bottom lane, and this is a very crucial thing to point out. You want to make sure you're within range of those minions dying to soak them. You don't actually have to damage them to get the experience, and that's a very big thing that a lot of players don't understand. They think they have to be getting those auto attacks, but actually it's a risk to push out. But the moment that they are revealed in the middle of the map, Bobby gets a little bit aggressive. He pushes forward, notices he doesn't have vision on them anymore, rotates back, but look at this play. They're moving up to contest these seeds. The first seeds of the night, that first night phase, has happened, and they're just looking for those pickups. The safe positioning in the backline, very smart, making sure he can just cast his spells and back up, never getting aggressive. He's very much always staying behind Ziggs, always in the back line to be able to cast his spells as safely as possible. And they only managed to pick up 2 of those seeds, which is kind of unfortunate because you want to get as many seeds as possible, but the threat of Nova is proving to be a little bit much more than they would like to actually contest. So more or less 3 of the 4 auxiliary camps, the Shamblers, will be picked up by the red team, and Kael'Thas' team will have to fall back and be sad with less seeds. But we're just going to put it back and fast forward and let this game excel, where we can start to see more of this unfold. And right now, there's a whole lot of nothing happening. Bobby Hankill will be... he's going to die. He's actually dead. You saw he tried to make his kit happen. I see I'm being harassed about my stream title. Apparently Twitch did not update it. This is, in fact, the Daily Quest. I know I updated that. Shame on Twitch. Shame on Twitch. Anyways, moving forward, it's just a lot of fancy footwork right now. Both teams, they want to take these terrors if they can. There's a total of 180 seeds on the map at a time, and being able to pick up those seeds is great, but it's also a risk. So as soon as Illidan thinks he's okay, he goes in with the Abathur hat, but on the bottom half of the map, we can see for sure that this terror will be cleaned up, and that will net them enough for a plant terror. They won the auxiliary camps, giving them more than 40 seeds. Each of those bosses contains 60 seeds. And, well, math, that's 103 seeds total for them, netting them the first terror of the game and a fair amount of aggression. But we don't care about terrors, we care about Kael'Thas. And Kael'Thas has just hit level 7. And if we look at the talents he has right now, Mana Addict, Gathering Power, and Fission Bomb. We talked about this in our introduction, and he's actually going to do something a little bit different. He's actually going to go a style that I like a lot later on with Flamethrower instead of the Chain Bombs, but that's just safety. That's because he's respecting the aggression on the enemy team. But what we see here is he really just wants to get those Gathering Power stacks. So you'll see right now he has 0 stack count. That means he gets the 5% ability power bonus, but he hasn't actually been part of any kills. Actually, his team has received 0 kills on their side whatsoever, so he doesn't get any more additional damage. But that's something with Kael'Thas and a lot of other heroes. If you can get that Gathering Power stacks up and keep them by not dying, he becomes rather terrifying throughout the game. But for now, his job is pretty much just sitting back, pushing these lanes back, playing safe, and waiting for level 10, and that's when the fights are going to start to get a bit more intense and a little bit more action coming down. But with this mule here, Pickles wants to get in there to lay down the damage with Nightmare the best he can, and Bobby's just doing his best to dissuade them, and the mule is healing that up rather quickly. Tassador fell. We don't care about him. We care about Kael'Thas, who is currently AFKing in base, waiting for those minions to march down. Maybe he was cleaning his hands. Maybe he was sniffing his armpit. I don't know what he was doing, but he's back moving, and we're happy he's back. All right, we are approaching level 10. Level 10 is typically where things get a bit more interesting. A plant terror did come and go during all of this. We ignored it. The mule has maintained this bottom lane nicely, and there's a lot of action in the middle of the lane. But Kael'Thas, he's focused on just playing safe, not dying and soaking up as much as he can. But we see that Phoenix being thrown down in a very nice position to zone. And Kael'Thas does get hit by that stun, but the Phoenix is doing so much damage on the back end, and his position is very far back in the line. Going in, just throwing out the Flame Strike, backing up, using it again with the Verdant Spirit. That's the clone. But the Precision Strike is on point, and he's eliminated very quickly. Huge aggression out of Tuark. They just found hesitation, they split the team up, and even with the Abathur clone, they just didn't have enough to handle it, and this will get them this fort very early in this game. I think I said Tuark. This is totally Stellar Lotus, but that's okay. And we're going to keep going with this. Now the Night Phase once again popping up. Enough seeds has been collected for the blue team. That's going to give them a Plant Terror, which they will summon shortly. But picking up this Terror will give nearly enough seeds on the side of the red team. Stellar Lotus, they're sitting at 93. One more auxiliary camp will be enough, but there isn't an auxiliary camp up. Right now, it's Cloud9. They're trying to control this top Terror, but being bullied back, Muradin with that Dwarf Toss, they will be able to scoop up 100 plus seeds at this point in time. So good for them, but it's all about Kael'Thas. And Kael'Thas, where are you?
How wonderful for you.
You're in the Plant Terror. Hiding from me. Click his name. The game doesn't know. Game doesn't get it. It's like, oh, he's gone. He left. He left for the day because he's inside a Plant Terror, and that's just weird. The game doesn't want to register that. Too awkward. Iacona waiting for this little jump. He doesn't really have the damage. He's just trying to buy time. Throwing the stun out just to, again, prevent this Terror from getting to the middle lane as quickly as he would like. And, yeah, nice little small play of delay. But Bobby will utilize this Terror for the next 15 seconds before it fades away. Then he will be forced to help defend this middle Terror that Wargreymon is currently inside. He's going to have the full kit. He has the damage to do it. We'll see what his positioning is like and how much damage he can actually lay out. But again, very far back, constantly just casting his spells from the maximum range. Doesn't want to like run in there and throw down gravity laps to try to lift them up. He's going to use that Phoenix's zone. He does eliminate the Terror, and he'll push out behind his allies. So with a Nuvarak in the front, he's happy to do that, but he doesn't know where the enemy team is. He doesn't know if anyone's around here trying to flank, wants to be sure that he is perfectly safe whenever he approaches those fights. Pretty safe stuff by Bobby, and we can look at his build more. He has the Phoenix, we've seen that, but he picked up Flamethrower. That's just safety. He's been playing in the backline constantly, and having the additional range on Flame Strike is just going to allow him to play very passively because he wants to pick up kills. He still doesn't have, the team still only has one kill, and he has no stacks of gathering power. That's really when Kael'Thas starts to get more scary, when you give him even more ability power. But he needs to pick up kills and then not die in the process of that happening. So that's why you're seeing this very safe style. And even, I mean, this is so many like reactionary picks based on the opposing side. Nova, Tassadar, and Jaina, 3 spellcasters, not a single auto attack hero other than their warrior and their healer on the enemy team. So we see double spell power picked up and this Flamethrower. All of that in response to the enemy team's composition based on what they're running right now. But Fan, his response is just going to be to throw his life away and he will fall. I should also mention that he did pick up Sixth Sense, which is pretty much the same kind of deal. It's geared towards dealing with spellcasters. But Kael'Thas, he's laying out those fire bombs. He's doing the damage the best he can. Nova is on the hunt. Muradin going in. The nice gravity lift in the front, but he mounts up and backs up. He doesn't want to fight that. Right now it's a 4v5. Illidan is dead. The team has to back up. They have to posture. They have to play safe. Just note, the game is currently in fast forward. That's why it looks very sped up. If we slow it down, it's a little bit slower. But the 1+ speed, it's nice for us to get to those juicy moments where Kael'Thas really gets to convey the amount of damage you can put out. Looking at the charts right now, he's up there. He's at 7100, but he's actually losing out to a Nuvarak. A Nuvarak constantly has those beetles chipping away, but that's another synergy we can talk about. Heroes like a Nuvarak that have these beetles that will just march in. Heroes like even Nazeebo, who can just throw those spiders that march in, have a lot of that chip damage that just keeps coming at you constantly. And that's what Kael'Thas provides a lot of, along with the burst that he also has available. But once again, it's actually going to be Kael'Thas in the Plant Terror marching in. Interesting to see that they're prioritizing a ranged assassin for this role, but it's also at the same time, we don't have to worry about him getting blown up by Nova. If their strategy is to have this Nova, which they did specifically pick up to deal with Kael'Thas, she won't be able to kill him very easily if he's in the husk of this big, beefy plant beast. It's just really smart play by the team, and look at this. They're forcing the position on Stellar Lotus to try to help deal with this Plant Terror, and Illidan is just kind of hanging out down here with the Abathur hat, just wailing away. He's got these locusts, they're just wailing away in the bottom, and Bobby in the Plant Terror is just roaming free. This fort is almost dead. The keep will fall very shortly, and Bobby, I mean, he just throws one more overgrowth, and that'll handle it. But on the other side, Stellar Lotus is pushing in with their Plant Terror, trying to make it happen, but the heals from the Mule just happen to be a bit too much at this point in time, keeping it alive. Nova does fall. I believe that was Illidan that picked up the kill. Nicely done, and that will net him some glitchy, flickering blood for blood things in the bottom. Yay, I don't know how to disable that. Go away. Stop, please. Stop. We'll just click that guy, and he'll die eventually. Very good. All right, Bobby has resumed his life as a beautiful prince from the Fire Nation, and Fan is going into the front line. We can see Syracuse has duplicated Illidan, so that's double Illidan's in the front line, and Bobby has so much of a front line. He is happy to finally get aggressive in this match. We can slow this down to normal game speed and just see the damage has been done, and he's starting to get these ignites. So looking back at the talents, he has picked up Ignite every time he casts that super long-range flamethrower, which he can increase the radius on with his Verdant Spheres, the trait, the D. Give him the D, we say. Oh, he will be melted. No, it will cast the Living Bomb on those targets. So, with Bobby dead, shame on him for dying, because now he has no Gathering Power stacks, which he just worked so hard for, but we have to fast forward as fast as possible to get back to the Bobby Hankill action of Mr. Kael'Thas. Bam! There he is. Look at that. Look at that. There he goes, marching on his tiger. The seed phase has just begun. All of the seeds sitting on the map. 74 on the side of the red team Stellar Lotus. They need to pick up a few more to net themselves another Plant Terror. But Kael'Thas, will he prove his worth in this fight? The Phoenix put in a great position right now, going in from the back line. There's Precision Strike, but it's not really going to connect with anyone on the blue team. So that's quite nice, and just constantly those bombs just applying damage. It seems like passive damage, but it's just so spread out. Every spell he casts explodes. He's got explosions on him. He's going to get hit again, lifted up. A very nice aggressive Bolt of the Storm, picking up that kill on Pickles. Now, we talked about Bolt of the Storm for defense, but aggression like that, when you're confident, can't really pay off, and the explosion still into a gem, and Earl won't quite kill him. Very close to being done. Fan goes in with the Bolt, and that will be a kill onto Tassadar. Convincing pickups in that last fight. The entire enemy team has been wiped, and that's actually going to be game. So, I think the lesson at the end of the day is Jake should really be sure that he picks out a great replay for these things, because that was a horrible replay. Hopefully, all of the discussion about Kael'Thas before this was good, great, and dandy, and the talent information in the builds was useful for you guys, but that replay didn't really express Kael'Thas that much, because it was very passive play, very safe play, constantly, which is a good lesson. That is a good lesson. But it wasn't as exciting with crazy blow-up kills. I could watch a random ladder game with Sia Steve just doing like 100,000 damage because he plays way too much Kael'Thas. I could do that, but I think I'll save that for another stream. At the time being, though, I'm going to take this time to plug a tournament that we are currently putting together. Now, if you guys are not familiar, I happen to run a podcast called Town Hall Heroes. Town Hall Heroes is a weekly show we have 63 episodes under our belt, so that's many, many weeks of shows. We've had several Blizzard employees visit our show, and we're running a tournament. Now, we recently had a t-shirt campaign, and if you look below the stream, you can see that we have raised $500 at this point in time, and now if you look to my left, right, whatever side it is on your screen, I think it's your right, you'll see that, Zoya has donated $30, but below me, that's our goal, is at $1,000. $1,000 for the tournament is our goal, but we also have stretch goals, and we just mapped all of this out. And if you can even look at this pretty screen, look at that. So we announced our first two teams last night for hitting $500. We will have Tempo Storm and Zevron competing in the event, and below that we have all of these stretch goals. All of these stretch goals. Man, green screens are hard. I would be the worst weatherman. And we will be announcing more teams and unlocking more teams as we do proceed with all of that. So definitely contribute if you can, because all of this goes to help support the competitive teams that work very hard to give us great, exciting games and just kind of level up the play of Heroes of the Storm and make it more legitimate as a game. That being said, that is going to conclude the daily quest, and we will resume the stream. I'll actually play some games as Kael'Thas and convey even more of that info, but the VOD will end here for my convenience. I'm going to throw it on the Solid Jake screen, and we'll be streaming again in just about 12 seconds.